Hey, awesome photographers out there! How are you today? I hope that you are as excited as me with this live tutorial from Lightroom of Lightroom. And we have a super special photo today because it is a photo that we're going to make pop out. We're going to make it stand out from any other photo that you guys can see and that you've ever seen. So the way we're going to do this is that we're going to work with color contrast. Now this particular photo was taken in Coney Island in 2016, and you can download the original file, which is in RAW. Right below is the download link, so you can download it, follow along with us, and learn some Lightroom, or you can also use your own photo. If you do appreciate the video, please subscribe. It does help me. These tutorials are completely free, and this way you will be supporting me, so I truly appreciate it. Also hit that like button if you do like this video. By the end, you will know how to make your video pop. So let's start. Right here, I have my working space. I am in my Develop module, going to my Basic tab right here. This tutorial is for photographers out there that are already a little bit familiar with Lightroom, but that they want to up their game. If you don't know Lightroom, it's totally fine. You can also follow along, check it out. You are going to learn. And we will have some live tutorial classes on how to use Lightroom, why it's awesome, and why it makes our life easier as photographers. It also helps you save time. So let's start with our Basic tab. On our Basic tab, we're going to start doing all of our general adjustments. Now, the general adjustments are all the adjustments that we're going to do to the photo to make sure that we have the best possible starting point of the photo that we can. Once we start with a really solid photo, with a photo that we're excited to start about, we're going to go into the fun part, which is the second part of the tutorial, which are the selective adjustments. Now, our secret is that the selective adjustments are actually the ones that are going to make the photo pop. Many photographers stop just in the general adjustments, and that's where the secret to make your photo pop is. Just add some selective adjustments. So, I'm going to start with my exposure right over here, and you can check it out on your screen. And I do feel that the photo was a little bit dark, so I'm going to up my exposure just around there. So I gave it around 1.35 points. Now, when we do augment our exposure, because it is a general adjustment, we can see how the sky is affected and how the clouds are affected as well. I did like the dark and deep blue that the sky had right over here. So afterwards, with the selective adjustments, we are going to tweak it just to give it that dramatic look. I like to make my photos realistic yet dramatic to make them pop. So following with our general adjustments, we're going to go down and we're going to augment our contrast with the slider, just moving the slider to the right slightly. We're going to be doing just some subtle adjustments to this image, and subtle adjustments are going to add up to really make it stand out. I think around there is good. It gives me some rich blacks in the areas that I have rich blacks over here, and it also helps me with my highlights. So it's going to help me brighten up those highlights. Now, if we continue down through the Basic tab right here, we're going to find our highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. Now, the highlights, because this image does have some clouds over here, and I want to make sure to maintain them, I'm just going to reduce them just a little bit, and you can see it's so subtle. I'm going to reset it by double-clicking on the word highlight so you guys can see the difference of what I just did, and it's ever so slightly. The devil's in the details. Once you get the details where you want them to be, they're all going to add up to make your photo just pop out from all the others. So I went to -22 on the highlights, and on my shadows, I'm just going to slightly diminish them as well, just to give this richness over here, on the blacks. And now I'm going to continue down. I'm going to go to our presence, which is under the same basic one, and that brings us to our first tip of the day, which is dehaze, clarity, and texture. It just popped up on your screen. So dehaze, clarity, and texture are going to help us give that contrast, especially in the midtones and that sharpness in the details. So we're going to start from the bottom to the top, from dehaze, clarity, and then texture. The reason for this is because dehaze is the most sensitive of the 3 sliders, so we want to just check out what it does. So I'm going to slide this slider to my right, and I'm going to see how the darks start becoming darker. If you want to just play around and see how this image does get affected, and again, you can download the same image right below in the description, and you can see that the photo starts looking a little bit wacky. We are working in RAW. I do want to mention that we are working in RAW, and this is why we have so much flexibility to work with this photo. As photographers, we do want full control over how each and every pixel of the photo is going to look. So if you can take your photos with RAW, I encourage you to do so. So I'm going to reset the dehaze just by double-clicking on the word dehaze, and just slightly adjust it right now that I saw up to where I can go. I think around here I'm happy. Now for clarity, I want everybody to zoom in at 1:1 and just check out the photo. And I want to see exactly what clarity is going to do to the image. Clarity is going to add some contrast in the midtones, especially in the midtones. And because we are adding contrast, that's going to give us a sense of sharpness. So sharpness is going to be the difference in between the highlights and the dark parts of the photo. And if we darken our midtones on the darker side and we brighten up our highlights in the midtones on the brighter side, that's going to create sharpness. So it is a little abstract, so I just want you to take a look at your screen and see how the clarity is starting to affect this image. So if you go all the way to the right, the image does start looking weird, and you also can appreciate how you're going to start losing some saturation. So I usually just play around with the sliders, go both ways and see what happens. This way you can start learning and refining your eye as to how each adjustment affects the photo. Now, every photo is going to have a very different effect on the adjustment that you select to do. That's why you should play around and just make sure that you know how it's affecting it. So again, we're going to go again, we resetted it, and I'm just going to augment it until around 28, go to 1:1, and you can see how these lines start looking sharper. Before and after, and it just really gives you that nice pop. Now for the texture, I'm going to go to this area, and I want you to see how the texture is going to affect the image. It's going to give you sharpness in the details. So if I bring it all the way to the right, you can start seeing how these details over here start becoming crisper. So I'm going to reset it just so everybody can see it again. Don't blink or you'll miss it. And there it goes. So I don't want to push it too much because or else the image might start looking a little bit strange. So I'm going to leave it at around 33. I'm going to zoom out. And now that we already did these 3 adjustments, which were first tip of the day, the image is starting to look sharper. However, it did go a little bit darker because dehaze and clarity do have that effect on the photo. So I'm going to go back up to my exposure and just augment it a little bit where I'm happy. And I think around there I'm happy. Now we go to our vibrance and saturation. I do want to have a color contrast, which is what I was talking at the beginning. The secret of this photo, and to make it pop, we're going to have color contrast, which means that we're going to have a cool background, which is our blue sky, with the warmness of the structure, which has red on the arms, and this roller coaster over here, which has orange. So those are warm colors. So I'm going to augment my vibrance, which is going to affect the most saturated colors already in the image until around there. And I'm going to augment my saturation. Now saturation is going to affect 100% of the pixels in the image, while vibrance only augments the saturation of the already saturated colors in your image. So I invite you guys to play around with these two just to see and observe how the adjustments are going to be seen on your photo. Lightroom always adds its own magic to the photo, and that's the beauty about Lightroom, because you can visualize an image as a photographer, and Lightroom is going to give you the tools to get to that visualization, but it's also going to add some magic to it, because every adjustment is going to affect it differently. Now that I'm happy with my basic tab and the general adjustments of my basic tab, we're going to continue down and we're going to go to our detail tab right here. So in our detail tab, I want you guys to press Z, which is our hotkey to zoom in. I use a lot of hotkeys just because it's a way to win time. You don't want to lose time. You want to work as quickly as you can because you have so many photos to fix, right? And to edit. So when I zoomed in, I noticed that I have some graininess to the photo. So we're going to go here to noise reduction, right over here on the right hand, and again we're on our detail tab, and we're going to augment the luminance slider to around 20 to 30. So 20 to 30 is going to give you enough smoothness usually, but it's not going to make you lose your sharpness, because what happens is that noise reduction gives you a smooth look, and that's the effect it has in order to diminish the grain of the noise. Now if you go all the way with the slider to the right, your image is going to start looking extremely pasty and as if it was painted. If you're going for this effect, awesome for you. For now, we're going to go between 20 to 30. And if you do want to check out what ISO your photo or this particular photo is, if you did download it to follow along with this tutorial, you can press your hotkey I for info, and you're going to have the information pop up on the upper left hand of your screen. If you press it again, your ISO information is going to come up. This photo was taken at 400 ISO, which is why I have some noise. It's not that much, but it is there. So I'm just going to press that I again, press Z to zoom out, and appreciate the photo and see where we're at. I'm going to close the detail tab because I'm happy with the noise right now, and we're still in our general corrections, and we're going to go to our lens corrections. Under lens correction, we have profile and manual. Profile is automatic, and Lightroom is going to give us some really nice corrections for the lens in an automatic way. And I want you to be there in this tab right now. We're going to start with Enable Profile Correction. So Enable Profile Correction, what it does is that Lightroom has a database of hundreds and thousands of combinations between lenses and cameras. And depending on the angle that you took your photo, the wider the angle, the more distortion you have. You are going to have some distortion on your photo, want it or not. So this Enable Profile Correction is going to help you eliminate this distortion. So I want to bring your attention to the corners of your image, right here, and especially this corner, which if we do zoom in, we're going to see that there's a dark vignetting effect going on here, which is very strange because the sky was not vignetted. So it obviously is something that happened with this photo when it was taken. So take a look over here in this corner, and we're going to check out our Enable Profile Correction. 1, 2, 3, and you can see how all of the corners brightened up to the same tone as the center of the image, and this vignette is now gone, as well as the distortion of the image. I'm going to toggle it on and off. Take a look at the screen. Don't blink or else you're going to miss it, believe it or not. 1, 2, 3. Off, on, off, on. So if you do want to have as professional looking photo as you can, I encourage you to check this box, enable profile correction. It's going to make you look good. Now we're going to go to our chromatic aberration. So chromatic aberration is a pain for photographers, to be honest with you guys. We never want a chromatic aberration on our photo unless it is completely intentional. When I was zooming in and I was reviewing the noise, I noticed that there is a magenta line going on around some of the elements. Now, you want to be at around 4:1 in your zoom, and you can do that by going over here on the Navigator tab on the upper left. You want to make sure that you have 4:1, 3:1. I usually like 4:1 better, because now we can really zoom in these pixels and see that we have this horrible magenta lines going on over here, and some green lines as well. What is chromatic aberration? So chromatic aberration is an error when the light goes in through the lens and falls on the sensor, and the red, green, and blue pixels that the sensor have do not align 100%. This means that the red did not align with the red, green, and blue, and the green, on this case, and part of the blue probably, did not align correctly with the others. So we want to correct that, because if we do get to print this image at, say, 3 feet by 4 feet, you're going to have these huge 1/4 of an inch red lines that are in your photo that are not intentional and that are going to give you a headache. So this can be very quickly corrected just by checking this box over here, which is remove chromatic aberration. If you guys have any questions during this tutorial, just feel free to send them by the live chat and I'll check them out. And if you are not watching the live, if you're watching the recording, just please send out a comment on the description and I'll get back to you. So are you ready for some magic? We're going to toggle the remove chromatic aberration, take a look at those magenta lines and say goodbye to them. Goodbye, suckers! There we go. I'm going to toggle it on and off so you can see how easy our life is now that we remove the chromatic aberration just by checking that box. So just have it automatically selected when you do import. I'll do another tutorial for that, or you can do it manually. Just do it for every photo so you have a as clean as possible photo. I'm going to zoom out pressing Z again. Take a look at my image and we are done with our general corrections. Now for the second part of this tutorial, we're going to make this image pop. How are we going to do that? Well, our tip number 2 is the selective corrections, and we're going to start with our HSL tab and specifically our color luminance. So I'm going to open up my HSL tab. You can see that you have H for hue, S for saturation, and L for luminance. We're going to go to luminance, and the first thing that I want you to do is check on this little tool, which is going to help us drag the colors that we select either darker or give them a brighter tone. So I did say before that I wanted to give a dramatic effect and make our background recess back to give it that 3D effect and make all of the warm colors that the metal structure has pop out. We're going to do that by making our blues darker. So if you select with your tool, you can make sure you have it on because you have a little circle with an arrow pointing up and an arrow pointing down. Just click on the color that you want to affect, and in this case it's going to be the blue of the sky, and drag it down to make it darker. You want to do subtle corrections. If you go way down, your image is going to start to just start pixelating and start having all these weird effects going on. So I'm going to go back to 0 and just do a very subtle correction, and I think around here I'm happy with this. So if you go back here to the sliders, you're going to see that the blue and the purple were selected. Now the beauty of using this tool is that Lightroom knows exactly which colors are there. If I would have done it manually, I would have just selected blue and not purple. So now our sky has a really nice deep blue, and we're going to go to our red and we're going to change tabs. We're going to go to saturation and we're going to augment these colors, which are the red and afterwards the orange of the roller coaster that's on the background. So I'm going to do this one manually just to make sure that I only affect the reds in this case. And I'm going to go around up to 46, and now I'm going to go to my orange slider and I'm going to augment it to around 45. Let's take a look at how our photo is looking from the beginning. So if you do toggle your hotkey, which is the backslash on your keyboard, and it just popped up there on your screen, you're going to be able to see the before and the after. I always like taking a look at the before and the after because it's important to remember where we came from and where we're at with our subtle adjustments. Now this is our before, believe it or not. It looks just like a photo that one would maybe discard and delete. But you can see that with some subtle adjustments, it's really starting to become alive. If you want to see how the HSL tab and how the last edits we did affected the image, you can toggle the on and off of this particular tab by this button, which I have circled in yellow. So take a look at your screen, don't blink. You can see now how this image with the tab closed, with the tab and the adjustments off, it looks more two-dimensional. It looks flatter. So if we turn it back on and we see the adjustments that we just did, it really starts popping out, which is our objective for this tutorial, just by deepening the blues and giving some warmth to the reds and the orange. So now I'm going to close up my HSL and I'm going to go to our third tip of the day, which is Vignette. So in my Vignette, we're going to go down to Effects, just open that tab up, and it's called post-crop vignetting. Now the reason it's called post-crop is because even if you crop, the vignette is going to readjust itself to the new crop that you have. So it's a smart vignette, which is awesome. And I'm going to drag this slider to the left just to give some darkness all around the image, because what we're trying to do is guide the eye of our viewer into taking a look at the structure first and just keeping him engaged for as long as we possibly can. Now, how our mind works is that our eye is going to be naturally drawn to where the light is in your photo, which means it's going to go to the brightest point of the photo first. And afterwards, it's going to go to our darker areas. So what you want to do with your spectator to have a really cool image and a very nice experience for your viewer to see the photo is have his eye, guide his eye to bounce between the brightness and the brighter part of the photo to the darker parts of the photo and then back again to the brighter part of the photo. We're going to do this by sealing all around our main focal point, which is this structure, with some darkening by adding vignetting around. So here I go. If I add some vignette, now I ensure that the eyes of my spectator stays inside for as long as it possibly can without the possibility to escape via any light leak. So let's check that out again. I just resetted it and my eye goes everywhere. So if we add this vignette, we don't want it to do it too harsh, it's just a slight adjustment. Now my eye comfortably stays within the structure and it's starting to play around within the lines of the structure. It goes back out but then back in again. Now we're naturally guiding our viewer's eye just to maintain and keep his attention for as long as possible in this photo and in this structure. One last step that I'm going to do before checking our before is I'm going to press our hotkey R, which just popped up on your screen. Now R is going to get us to our cropping. I want to crop slightly, and rather than cropping, because it's already so tight over here, I really don't have a lot of space to work with my crop. Perhaps I could have taken a step back when I took the photo just to give me more flexibility there, but it's fine. What I really want to do is try to get as rid as possible of this small detail on the lower right hand, which seems to be a gate that is there. And again, the details are what is important. It's what's going to make your photo stand out and what's going to make you stand out as a photographer. So these details do matter, believe it or not. If I slightly adjust the angle and the straightness of this image, you can see now that it's completely outside of the photo, giving it some infinity over here. And I did manage to give it some straightening without cropping this detail, because if you crop this detail out, that's it with the photo. It's really, for me, it would be a completely different photo and would not work. The intention is here. The intention is here. And now you have your photo that really pops out and stands out from the others. Here's our before. Again, you can toggle your backslash hotkey just to take a look at the before and see where you're at. And here is where we finished up. So guys, thank you so much for joining us on this follow along tutorial. Again, you can download this photo below. It's taken in RAW, gives you much more flexibility to edit and to really give that stamp of approval as a photographer that you are to the photo. If you have any questions, you can also email me at myphototvnyc@gmail.com. If you do have an image that you'd like me to edit, just send it to this email over here. We're going to be editing some special photos of some people that already sent some in next week. So remember to subscribe and ring that bell so you get notified when we're live every day at 12 p.m. and 3 p.m. Making photographers get better results via Lightroom. Bye everybody. Thanks so much. Bye.